All right. Well, welcome y'all to our final class in our four-part democracy series. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for those who have attended each class. Thank you to everyone who has been watching this course. I know there's been a lot of people that have been watching from Zoom and checking our YouTube for the new classes. So thank you so much for those who are watching this later. But yeah, this is the first time we did a money in politics course, like a proper, not just a one-off class, but a proper 4-week course. So we're excited to do it again. And yeah, thanks y'all for being here. Tonight, we're going to talk about breaking the campaign cash machine. And yeah, course outline. Arjun, is this your section?
It
I can't.
is Frank's section first. And
Okay,
I
I'm
think it's
kicking
gonna
it
be
to you.
Okay, here, this is the course outline, and we are on breaking the campaign cash machine, June 17th. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to talk about how big money floods our political system, how money dominates Pennsylvania politics, who's really donating, and what they're buying, and how democracy dollars, which is a form of public campaign financing, can shift power back to the people. Next, please. This is part of our overall look at diagnosing the system, the really difficult system that has developed in Harrisburg, and it's no exaggeration to say over the centuries. The General Assembly is quite old and has been going on for a long time, and we have quite a difficult situation when it comes to money in politics. With where March on Harrisburg has been pushing for a gift ban, which is sort of a sort of mini bribery system, and very few states, we're one of three, that don't have some limits on what gifts can be given to politicians. And it's also worth noting that the gift ban law is so full of loopholes that almost none of the gifts are actually reported with a politician's name connected to them. No limits on campaign contributions, and power in the Capitol is really very tightly concentrated in the leadership of the House and the leadership of the Senate. That would be the President pro tem in the Senate and the majority leader. And then in the House, the Speaker of the House and the majority leader. And then all the legislation goes through committees, and the committee chairs, depending on the legislation, one in the Senate, one in the House, also have a lot of power. And you really need to get those, at least three of those gatekeepers, whichever party controls the chamber, in agreement to move things. So it's a very difficult system that we have in Pennsylvania. It's better in a lot of other states, most other states. Next, please. So money in politics defined. Money in politics is how people with money buy the political power they need to pass laws to make themselves more money. That's another way of saying the political power is the power to make the future what you want it to be. And the collective version of that is that it's the power that we have to make the future what we want it to be. So whether it's about this year's budget or being able to get health care without damaging your family's finances, or having a livable climate in the future, we're talking about the future that we want. But our political power has been taken from us because money is being used to buy power that rightfully belongs to the citizens. Next, please. We have a little video here of our executive director, Michael Pollack, talking about Boys Penrose and his famous quote, and I'll just read it here. Boys Penrose was a leader in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, As a very young man, he went on to the U.S. Senate, where he was a very powerful leader. I think he passed away about a century ago. But he said, "I believe in the division of labor. You," a little context here, he is speaking to his contributors, who at that time were the super wealthy of the Mellons, the Carnegies, the Fricks, all sorts of super wealthy individuals. "I believe in the division of labor. You send us to Congress. We pass laws under which you make money, and out of your profits, you further contribute to our campaign funds to send us back again to pass more laws to enable you to make more money." And alas, that has not changed a lot since his day. I think we can move on to the next one.
I'm going to play the video really quick.
Oh, can you? Okay, great.
Yes. Yeah, I was messing with it. You got it. Can everyone hear that?
Nobody should know who this person is, Boise Penrose, because no statue should be put up to him. Any decent society that loves democracy would have long forgotten this polished turd over here. But we're at the Pennsylvania State Capitol, where Boise Penrose is a clear reflection of the values that govern this place. This is one of the most corrupt political machine bosses in U.S. history. This is a man who took money from the oligarchs, the robber barons, the Carnegies, the Mellons, and waged policy violence on the people of Pennsylvania and this entire country. He should not have a statue, but frankly, until the corruption is illegal in that building over there, this is their perfect mascot right here. A corrupt, polished turd.
There you have it. Next slide, please.
I feel like we need like elevator technical difficulties music that can just gently play.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. Seriously. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
When's the album dropping?
Seriously. Okay. I think we're gonna be good now.
Okay.
And y'all get a sneak peek of the other ones, but don't look. Okay.
There we go. Democracy Dollars that we're going to be talking about this evening fits both sides of March on Harrisburg's money out, people in platform. We need to get big money from the few out of our elections and put the people, the many, back into our elections. So how do we get money out and people in? Let's look at the problem first, and let's hear what Joe Biden, who was once a young person, had to say when he was new in the Senate.
The system does produce corruption, and I think implicit in the system is corruption, when in fact, whether or not you can run for public office, and it costs a great deal of money to run for the United States Senate, even from a small state like Delaware, you have to go to those people who have money, and they always want something.
Well, I wonder whether you would feel that there's some virtue in forcing candidates to go out and try to raise money. I've heard people, probably people who didn't run for office, say that it's uplifting to go out and try to get money. Do you think that there's something unuplifting about putting a limit to how much you can ask one man to give you?
I think it's the most degrading experience in the world to have to go out and ask for money, because you know that unless you accidentally agree with the position taken by the person or group that has the money, that you run the risk of deciding whether or not you're going to prostitute yourself to give the answer you know they want to hear in order to get funded to run for that office. And it's coincidental in many instances when in fact you happen to agree with where they are. And you run the risk, by the way, of rationalizing, of saying, well, if I compromise on this one, give them one, I get 90% of what I want, and I don't have to give in too much.
So you feel
So money in politics isn't a problem caused by the Democrats or the Republicans. It's a systemic problem that goes way back. But now it's on steroids and on speed too, with billionaires nationally and in PA too, paying the piper and calling the tune, along with the usual background spending by various self-interested groups and individuals who give money to candidates in order to get what they want from state government. While some Pennsylvanians donate small amounts of money to candidates, the game is really dominated by the very wealthy. In in his 2022 run for governor, Josh Shapiro raised $59 million. And a large amount of that money came from the very wealthy, including some of the folks on the poster here, the Mike Bloomberg, Michael Rubin, the actress Kate Capshaw, and Steven Spielberg gave him $100,000. But wait, you think, don't they live in Malibu, California? Well, not anymore. They moved to Pacific Palisades, California, so which isn't really any closer to Pennsylvania. A majority, in fact, of Shapiro's money in that campaign when he became governor came from outside Pennsylvania. And you know, these out of the state people have more political power than we do. Next, please. As far as in-state billionaires go, PA has a super funder. That's him on the right, Jeffrey Yass from the Philly suburbs. Last election, he gave through his front groups more than $10 million to the PA Attorney General candidate Dave Sunday, who won, and that's him with the tie and the flag there. Now, $10 million seems like a lot of money to us, but Yass could write a $10 million check every day for the next 16 years before he ran out of money. So $10 million is nothing to Yass, but it's everything to a candidate like Sunday. As Senator Penrose explained, much of the money paid to elect candidates is for the purpose of protecting and expanding the wealth of the already wealthy. And very often what they want to have happen is nothing at all, because they like the system the way it is. They're making money and they don't want to see any change. So as we can see with Jeffrey Yass, the ultra wealthy, for the ultra wealthy, spending millions is easy. It's just the cost of doing business, a cost that often pays for himself, like when you have huge income tax reductions coming for the very high income people, like will be happening if this bill that Trump is pushing passes this year. So the problem here isn't just that elected officials would be tempted to sell their vote, but it's also that they legislate in fear that if they support a change that upsets the wealthy funders, they might find themselves in a re-election campaign against big money. Imagine if you were an elected official, and it's like if a lobbyist comes into your office and says to you, we're going to spend $1 million in your next election, and I'm here to talk about whether we're going to spend it for you or against you. That's the kind of pressure that this unlimited campaign spending puts on elected officials. So when big money spends in elections, the rest of us, the people who have had our political power taken from us, are not heard. So we need to democratize campaign funding and give candidates an alternative source of campaign money, democracy dollars. But before we do that, we'll have a quiz. Arjun?
Thanks, Frank. Could we go to the next slide, please? All right, so before we give the answer to this question, we're going to take a poll that I think is going to manifest in the Zoom chat. The poll is, how much money do you think it costs to run for office? And you can pick like governor race, state senator, state house, president, national senator, whatever you think. Just type your answer into the poll and say, yeah, what race are you talking about, and how much do you think it costs to run for that office? We got one answer in, two. People are thinking, three. How many zeros should I add to the end of my answer? Seven. Maybe we can give it 10 more seconds. All right.
Can people see the results of what other folks said?
I cannot at this moment.
Okay.
I do see 9 out of 9 answered.
I
Okay,
can see that. I can share my screen here and show
sure.
it up. Oh, it's a really cool graph, actually. Okay, let me do that.
Look, y'all, we don't have the Jeff Yass money. This is free Zoom. Volunteer one.
Folks see that?
Okay. Yep. So we've got a few answers in here. Governor, tens of millions of dollars, 40,000 for most state house seats. Government, 200 million. President, 1 billion. President, billions. Governor, 20 million. If you scroll down, local 20K, 10 million for US rep. Actually, pretty spot on. Um, Andrea, could you jump back to the slides, please? Then it says click to exit full screen right now.
All right, give me 1 second. Sorry, y'all.
You're good.
I think we need that elevator music again, Jeremy. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeremy. So you all were pretty right on the money, and I think the answer is a lot, right? So the ranges are pretty big, and not everyone in every race is raising the same amount of money. But even for like the most, in quotes, junior role, a state rep, it's tens of thousands. So that's like the low figure. And then it goes to hundreds of thousands to millions, tens of millions of dollars for governors and US House reps, tens of millions to hundreds of millions for US senators, and billions for US presidents. I think the point here is really one, you can't really run if you don't have access to a ton of money and even tens of thousands of dollars, like 40, $50,000. That's a large down payment on a house. Normal people don't have that kind of money that they can just like fling into a campaign. Usually you're saving that up for many, many, many years for life things. Um, and the thing that kind of when I first saw this slide actually at a different March on Harrisburg event, the thing that really stuck with me is if you in your head say, I need tens of millions of dollars to like run for my position, then you're naturally gonna go to the richest people because it's so much easier to have someone write you one $100,000 check than it is to get like 1,000 $100 donations. Like the difference between those, the magnitude is just so enormous that of course it's one conversation, of course one corrupt conversation, but it's one conversation nonetheless, versus hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of conversations to actually raise the money the right way. So this slide just, yeah, if you don't have a lot of money, not really feasible to run for any of the offices, even the kind of smaller in quotes ones. Um, the amount of money is going up. Um, so I feel like every year I'll see some kind of article that's like record-breaking ad spending in election season. In 2024, Pennsylvania saw a record-breaking $1.2 billion in election ads. A lot of those ads are being used to divide us as the people. So usually when you're seeing ads on TV, like I don't know about you all, but I don't typically see a lot of like uplifting, like here's the future and here's how we're all going to build together and we're going to make the state great. It's all like attack ads and angry and red and this dramatic, awful music is playing all the time. So not only is the amount of money being used to drive ads going up and up and up, it's also a core part of the strategy, I would say, of the powerful to keep us divided from each other. So they're like pouring a lot of media into our homes, and it's super divisive media. If you look at the chart or the kind of like graphic on the right there, which is showing specific areas um, of Pennsylvania, what you'll see, I know the font's a little small, is yes, areas like Pittsburgh and Philly that have the big cities. Um, do get like more of the donations, but even areas like Erie, Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, like all these other places, there's a lot of money in there too. Tens of millions of dollars are going into those locations. So I'd really just say no matter where you are, you need a lot of money if you're going to run for office. Next slide. I think Frank made this point before where the problem's bipartisan. So it's not just that like Doug Mastriano was maybe uniquely poor at raising money, even though he also raised $7 million, but it's really the problem is there, and you're going to see the Republican kind of example on the next slide across both parties. I don't really think that there's like a party that's like saying, hey, we don't want money, like please let us make less. There might be individuals who are doing it more the right way, but generally, if you start going and looking at, in this case, Shapiro versus Mastriano or any of these elections, what you're gonna find is, yeah, they're raising as much money as they possibly can. And when someone, quote, doesn't raise as much, like Mastriano on the right here, even then he's raising $7 million. Like, it kind of speaks to me to think about how, like, that was widely considered like a huge failure, and oh my God, he didn't raise any money, and it's $7 million. It's not like nothing, it's still a lot of money. So yeah, very much bipartisan problem, and it's intentional. Both parties have this kind of holistic death grip on the system, and they both raise a lot of money. Um, if you think about the amount of money that they're raising, what it leads to is our political people in office spend a lot of time fundraising. So we are asking them to spend time doing other things like reimagine and rework our healthcare system, reimagine and rework our educational system, reimagine and rework our infrastructure, reimagine and rework. You can just keep going and going and going. And if you think about the enormity of those problems that we're asking them to solve, like healthcare and education, there's these like big climate, these big societal problems. And then you start thinking about they spend maybe most of their time raising money, not actually trying to solve the problems. And actually, if you have to raise $50 million, $60 million, $70 million, that's probably why you're spending a lot of your time fundraising, because it's not possible to raise that much money in just like one day or a few weeks. The tweet on the left here is from Stephen Caruso, who someone can sanity check me on this, but he's a journalist for Spotlight PA, which is a great media outlet to read. Lots of educational, sometimes horrifying content on there, but it is very, very educational. So Stephen has a tweet where he was talking about the Pennsylvania General Assembly, and he was saying in a 3-day span, they passed 12 bills through the House and Senate. One of them went to Shapiro's desk and became a law, so it was like actualized. And in that same period, they held at least 49 political fundraisers. So if you just take that ratio, it's like a 4-to-1 fundraiser to bill ratio. And again, it makes sense. If you've got to raise $50 million, then you're going to spend a lot of your time fundraising. If you look at the thing on the right, fundraiser doesn't mean door to door talking to everyday people like us about, hey, here are the issues, and here are my stances on policies, and here's how I think we could change things to make it better. That would actually be like maybe a really great way of fundraising. Instead, what you'll find, the picture on the right is for a Rep Jordan Harris, is you'll have these kind of like closed door events where it's $100 to get in, and it's thousands of dollars to be like a sponsor or a host, where you'll get more attention from the given candidate. So these fundraisers are not like these, hey, I'm at the park, everybody come out, and like I'm just going to talk about my policies. They are closed door, and the closing of the door is because of money. They're asking for money to get in. So if you kind of wrap a bow around the whole thing, what this really means is that our politicians are spending a lot of time fundraising. They're doing this because they have to raise a lot of money, and their fundraising process means they're always hanging out with people who give them a lot of money. So their day-to-day lived experience is just people with enormous amounts of wealth talking to them about what they think the next, whatever, year, 2 years, 5 years should be like. Next slide, please. In my notes, this slide is just called the absurd, because when Jeff showed this to me, I was really shocked. For those of you that no one on this call will know me, but I'm actually quite new to March on Harrisburg. So I joined the organization as a volunteer about 12 weeks ago ish. So a lot of this stuff is new to me too. Like I vote, I was always voting, but I wasn't so involved politically. And this is one of the most absurd things that I've seen. Um, so if you look on the left here, you have State Senator Joe Pittman, who's a Republican, and he ran in 2024 and he ran unopposed. So that's why he's gotten 97% of the vote, right? So he basically ran for office unopposed. And then on the right here, both these views are from Ballotpedia, another great resource to like look up elections. You can see that Joe Pittman actually, even though he was running unopposed, raised a ton of money and gave a lot of that money away. Raised $3.5 million and then spent $3.5 million. And that's super weird because it's like, why do you need to raise all this money if no one even ran against you? What are you raising it for? And the answer is actually, if you look at maybe that first row where it says top contributors, students first PAC, that political action committee or PAC is actually funded by Jeffrey Yass, who was on one of Frank's slides earlier. So Jeffrey Yass is giving money to that PAC. That PAC gave $250,000 to Joe Pittman. Then Joe Pittman's giving the money to Devlin Robinson's campaign. So Joe Pittman is giving money to another politician. And this is all happening. And then, of course, it's happening like kind of at scale in a lot of different ways. And all of this is happening in a year where he didn't even need it for the election that he was in. He was running unopposed. And what he's effectively doing is buying influence in his own party. So I think that's like big point one is that the money that comes into politics is not just for, of course, advertising and winning votes and stuff like that is a big part of it, but it's also used by politicians to buy influence within their own party. So you can see things like the money goes from Yass to Students First PAC to Pittman, to Devlin Robinson, to the Republican Campaign Committee. Then the Republican Campaign Committee, I'm sure, donates it to lots of other Republican candidates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only other point I'd make on this is I think there is something, this is what I think, is that there's some amount of intentionality in how divorced the person giving the money, let's use Jeff Yass as an example, is from the person receiving the money. I didn't know who Jeff Yass was. I think he's the richest person in Pennsylvania. I don't think he's like crazy famous. And the way he gives money is he gives it to a PAC, who gives it to a candidate, who gives it to another PAC, who gives it to another candidate. And all of those steps in the middle mean for the people in the state, you don't really know that it's happening. And it's very convoluted. And it's like this massive, messy spider web in the middle between one unbelievably rich person and then all the people that they're funding. And I really think that that is on purpose because if the lines were super clear, then everyone would be really up in arms because it's so obviously horrific. That might be my last slide. Next section. I think I'm about to turn it over to Jeff.
Yeah. So we're going to take all that information, just kind of wrap it up in a bow and kind of describe then what happens with all of this. So next slide, please. So we talked about how elections are extremely expensive, and the easiest way to get your money for your campaigns is to get it from what are called whales, which are effectively large money donors to campaigns. The easiest way to get that money is to go to the people who have it, like the billionaires. Jeff Yaz, the one thing that we haven't said so far is Jeff Yaz is a huge proponent of what they call school choice voucher programs for non-public schools or for charter schools and such, which is a lot of people believe that's severely harming public education, but the charter schools are making good money. So So Jeff Yazz is giving money, Michael Rubin, Mike Bloomberg. A lot of the money that comes in, if not most of it, comes from outside of Pennsylvania. So it's not even Pennsylvania constituents that are contributing to the campaigns here. The people with the money, the businesses that are contributing to these campaigns, they have so much power that, and they spend so much time in Harrisburg that they have their own, reserved parking spots at the parking garage across the street from the Capitol. So this picture is a real picture taken from the, I think it's the Chestnut Street parking garage. I forget the name of that one. I'm sorry, it's not Chestnut Street, but anyway, the parking garage right across the street from the Capitol. And the politicians spend a lot of their money or a lot of their time raising money instead of doing what we expect them to do, which is represent us, pass legislation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. And Arjun talked about the fact that where the money comes from and where the money gets to is messy. It gets transferred from this person to this organization that transfers it to these other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Beyond the campaign contributions, there's lots of other money flowing in that comes from the billionaires or whatever. Independent expenditures, which is basically a way of saying they're running their own ads or sending their own mailers, et cetera, et cetera. So there's this big pile of money that's flowing around the politicians. Next slide. So since really they have to make the donors happy in order to get reelected or to get elected in the first place, they need that money more than they need votes, it seems, because the money ends up buying the votes because it gets them attention and gets people motivated to vote through the mailers and through the television ads or whatever. So if you all remember during the presidential campaign when Biden had that really horrible debate performance, all the big donors said, you know what, we're going to stop contributing until he steps away. They had tons and tons of ability to make him step aside by refusing to donate to his and other Democratic campaigns. That's how much power they have, just the handful of people who did that. So what does that do? So since they are representing the people with money and not the general population of Pennsylvania, we end up with policies that benefit them and not us. So we in Pennsylvania last year spent nearly $200 million in subsidies to the racehorse industry. Now I know the government does pick winners and losers. You would think that they would pick winners and losers based on what is good for the public, what's good for, all of us in general. Climate change would be a good choice for that money, but no, instead they are funding horse racing. The second one here, Stephen Caruso that we talked about earlier, who wrote that tweet before from Spotlight PA, did an article about how there was a bill in the state house to ban pigeon shooting, which is considered animal abuse or whatnot. It was a very bipartisan bill. It had a lot of support from both parties. Got passed by the committee and got tabled by leadership in the House. And Caruso was able to go and find that there were these groups who wanted to support pigeon shoots, gun clubs and such. And they contributed a significant amount of money to Leader Bradford's campaign. And they claim that it helped them get a meeting with him to discuss this issue. And the pigeon shoot bill that had strong bipartisan support died in session because it never got off the table. It never got a floor vote and never went to the Senate. And again, if you look at the way the tax structure is in Pennsylvania, if you look at how the richest among Pennsylvanians versus the poorest among Pennsylvanians spend their income in taxes, the top 1% only pay about 6% of their income in taxes. The bottom 20% spend almost 14% in taxes in some way. So our tax system on whole is regressive. So it hurts the people at the bottom more than it gets money from the people at the top. Next slide, please. Oops. So if there were a good way to flip the script on this. So right now, the most important people to the lawmakers are the donors. It would be great if we could come up with a way to make them beholden to the voters instead of the donors. If we could give the voters the power to get the attention that the lawmakers are giving. So next slide, please. So what we're going to present today is an alternative to the current campaign funding system that we have today. It's called Democracy Dollars, where we do flip the script. Without the individual small money donors or normal, I'll say normal in air quotes, citizens of Pennsylvania, without them having to spend a lot of their own money to fund these campaigns themselves, they have the ability to funnel money to these campaigns, to the lawmakers who are campaigning themselves, so that the politician has to pay attention to the citizens who are going to give them this money, as opposed to the people with money. Lauren.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and take this part, and then Lauren's going to jump in and tell us more about Seattle specifically. So, as Jeff just talked about, Pennsylvania has us spending a lot on horse racing, sadly. And to just give the exact numbers, Jeff said that Pennsylvania spent $200 million on horse racing. We're going to talk a lot about the Seattle example of Democracy Dollars, and Seattle has funded that with a property tax raise of $3 million a year over 10 years, so still far less than a year's spending on the horse races in PA. Next slide, please. So the idea with Democracy Dollars is that each voter gets 4 $25 vouchers that they then donate to candidates, and candidates turn them in, they redeem them in order to receive those public funds. Participating candidates have to cap their donations. They also can't receive money from super PACs. They can't reimburse their contributors with this money that they've gotten from Democracy Dollars. They can't pay their family members. There are a lot of stipulations on this. And the idea is that through this process, your constituents become your donors and you really become much more focused on them. Seattle was the first city in the US to adopt this. Oakland is starting it in the next election cycle. Voters in Seattle can use them for any of these races. They've had it for 7 years, and as Lauren will explain, it's working really well there.
All right, thank you, Aoife. So Democracy Dollars in Seattle have led from, it kind of depends on which election you're looking at, but a 2.5 to 5 time increase in the number of donors, which you can see on the right side of the screen here. Just a hugely larger number of contributors, and most of that is coming through Democracy Dollars, and it's not increasing the amount of cash as well. And these donors are a lot more representative of the city. You know, usually folks who can donate are folks who can put that in their budget. You know, donating $50 to a candidate is not feasible, or just not what people are prioritizing usually. So this has made, as you can see here on the left graph, the income of donors in the city, including cash donors on the left 2 bars and voucher donors on the right-hand side, it's about on par with the city's registered voters and voters in the 2021 election, which is a really dramatic shift from before, when it was mostly wealthy voters who were donating. And this is very similar across race and age as well, with younger voters and voters of color making more contributions as well. But the graphs that I found were not as pretty on those. Next slide. So this is also made a much larger and more diverse candidate pool. So more candidates are running for office because they can afford to. As we've talked about, running is really expensive. And so being able to get funds by just connecting with your neighbors, connecting with your voters, your future constituents, having that operation where you are connected to the community, that means that you can secure support because everybody has a chance to contribute. So that means you don't have to wine and dine your wealthy donors in order to run for any office or self-fund. And as you can see from this graph or this chart, more women, more people of color, more young people are running for and winning seats under the Democracy Dollars program. So especially in the winning candidates, it's really stark. A 28-point jump in percentage of winning candidates who are people of color, 16-point jump in number of percentage of women who are winning candidates, and the age of winning candidates has also dropped substantially. Yes, next slide, please. And we'll go to 8:13 in this video.
Problems the program needs to address, Morales remains enthusiastic about democracy.
Did people hear
Is
that?
everybody else able to see the screen? I think that we can hear it, but we can't see it. That's fine too. And also just to set up the video, these are candidates who are actually running against each other for office in Seattle, both testifying to the power of this program.
Morales remains enthusiastic about democracy vouchers.
Oh my gosh, it's a game changer. It really is, because that was more time to go knock doors and talk to people. It was more time thinking about policy positions. It was more time meeting with community leaders.
Mark Solomon agrees.
Going to the doors, engaging with people, asking them what they are concerned about.
I'm Mark Solomon. I'm running for Seattle City Council.
And then letting them know about me, some of the approaches that I have, and asking if they've used their democracy vouchers. Some have said, yes, I've already sent them in, I've already used them, or others have said, oh, no, I still have those. It's like, would you be willing to help the campaign by signing those vouchers over? And many have said yes, and it's been wonderful.
So yeah, as you can see, this is something that really helps candidates out, helps them be able to run, connect with their constituents. Seattle has now the highest of any major city in the US percentage of voters who are also donors, thanks to democracy vouchers. And candidates like the ones that you saw are a lot more engaged in knocking doors, going to community events, because they have the time, because they have the financial freedom as well. And I'll hand it over over to Aoife to talk about this. You're still on mute.
So true. So as Lauren just talked a little bit about, and as we got asked in the chat, the idea here is that as public officials have more time and are more involved in what our priorities actually are, the policies that they push change. So there have been more affordable housing policies, better taxation of large corporations, foreign influenced corporations. Spending has been partially stopped in Seattle, and Amazon has stopped donating so much money to Seattle's politicians. And all that is on top of the things like a better diversity of, yes, that's true, Jeff, spending on elections in Seattle. All of that is on top of better diversity of politicians in Seattle.
And I'll just add on that as well. That was a problem at the beginning of the program, is that outside spending was going up, But actually, the city council got on top of that and they said, how do we reprioritize making sure that these democracy vouchers return power to the people? And that's when they passed the foreign influenced corporate spending ban, which is the same thing that we're pushing here. So these are all of these reforms that we talk about at March on Harrisburg. They all go together and they all support each other. Yeah, I'll just voice Andrea's comment in the chat. Does anybody have any questions so far? Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm sorry about the Oklahoma people having parking spaces in your capital. But I was wondering, are you guys as gerrymandered over there as we are? Like, are they mostly Republican representatives in your state and just a Democrat governor? And not that he's awesome. I think Josh Shapiro is one of the worst people. He's a Zionist, but he's better than Doug Mastriano. I was so worried about him. His wife told everybody that she does prayer warfare and she prayed for a dust storm when he was in a tank battle in Iraq, and that's what saved him. I mean, they are Looney Tune. So I'm glad he didn't win, but I'm not impressed with Josh. So what's the gerrymandering looking like in Pennsylvania? My dad was born in Pittsburgh and moved to Tulsa when he was 1 year old, and he did graduate school in Philadelphia. So we have quite a lot of connections to Pennsylvania. I'd like to learn a little bit more.
I can try to take that one, and anyone correct me if I get something wrong. So a few years ago, the state Supreme Court had ruled that our districts were too gerrymandered, and they actually did require some redistricting. At this time, our House is relatively even. There are only about 10 or so districts that are actually competitive, but the overall makeup of the rest of the districts are pretty even. Our Senate is still relatively gerrymandered towards Republicans. And that happened in the last redistricting. But because the House is competitive, we're probably not as bad. But it's not. Gerrymandering in general is bad pretty much everywhere, but it could be worse, I'll just say.
Yeah, I think we had I remember this from a different March on Harrisburg, like I think it was like the how to lobby session, and I think there's some stat that was like it was like above 85%, I believe, of the elections in Pennsylvania are decided by more than 10 percentage points. So it's like however we're drawing it, it's resulting in the vast majority of the time it's a non-competitive election, which helps people because if you don't need to compete, then you don't need to talk to the people.
Yeah, I'll just add that there was a considerable struggle that March on Harrisburg was involved with, along with some other groups coming out of the 2020 census and the reapportionment that took place for the 2022 election. But the process of drawing the lines, which proponents of change want to see more of a citizens-based group doing that. But the process now, according to the way it's done through the Constitution, is to basically put it in the hands of the party leadership in the House and the Senate. And so it's it's a very political game. Would be much improved if the politicians got out of the business and the Citizens Commission took it over, as has been done in other states.
Just to add, we had another question. Jeremy asked, can't super PACs or large contributors still pour money in? And then to add to what Aoife said, in Seattle, and please everyone correct me if I'm making a mistake here, but it's an opt-in program. So as a politician, you don't have to do it, but you would opt into doing it. And then when you opt in, if you're getting the money from the democracy vouchers, then you also agree to other restrictions, one of them being you're not going to raise money from packs. So the way I've been thinking about this is it's actually opening the door to people who traditionally could not or would not run, because even if you are talking to all the people, you don't have enough money. It's opening the door to that group.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, you can't control super PAC spending because that's not affiliated with the campaign. So that's why the foreign influence corporate spending ban got put into place as well. And PAC, though, you would take less individual contributions is the rule, and also from, large donors, etc.
And if I could just add to that, the purpose of those restrictions are to make sure that you're not just using the public dollars as an add-on to what you would normally fundraise with the old way. It's a way of shifting you from the old way to citizens giving you their vouchers.
And then we have one other question, which was from Joshua. Thank you. It said, are there any ways that PA's democracy dollars should differ from Seattle's? It's an interesting question.
I think there would have to be some local considerations of how much money each voucher is going to be worth, and depending on how many offices are up for election that year and that sort of thing. So I think that would be an important, there'd be some calculations around that. But I think, mostly the folks in Seattle are pretty happy with the way it's working out.
The only other thing I'd add is I know I think it can get funded in different ways. So I know Aoife mentioned like a small property tax. The reality, I mean, we just saw the slide. It's like $200 million on horse racing. So there are a lot of different places in Shapiro's budget or the PA budget. If you go actually look at the budget, it's many, many, I think it's many billions of dollars is the budget. So the funding mechanism, I think it is important. Actually, like in our democracy dollars work session where we're writing some very long, detailed bill, that's like one of the things we think about is, hey, if you're funding it, like what's the best way to fund it? Because you want to fund it in a way that's not restrictive to the people in any way. And there's definitely enough money to do it because there's so many billions, so you have to pick the right thing and make sure that that doesn't get exploited in some way.
All right. Well, with that, I think that we can pass it off to Michael.
Hello, everybody. Great to be with you tonight. Thank you to everybody who's presented so far. Well done. This has been a great presentation, and let's transition now into kind of how we win and a bigger conversation about what we're doing here. So this is our full agenda, and we just want to be very clear tonight as we talk about democracy dollars and campaign finance reform in particular, that there are a lot of things that we need to win to have a functional government of, by, for the people in Pennsylvania. There's no silver bullet here. There's no single policy that's going to fix anything, everything. Whether it's gerrymandering or campaign finance or gifts or the independent super PAC spending, or the revolving door, or our lack of a ballot initiative, or the threat of prison gerrymandering to return in a couple of years, right? There's a lot of things that we need to be working on. There's a lot of things that we need to fix. And this is our full money out, people in policy platform. This is our policy roadmap to building a government that is responsive to the people, where we get money out and we get people in. So there's 23 policies on here. And we're making this point really to hammer in the idea that these are long fights. There's no silver bullets, there's no easy answers. And we're happy that you're watching this. We're happy that you're with us here tonight on June 17th, 2025. And I say the date because there's definitely people watching the recording of this in the future at some point. And you need to jump into the fight for the long haul. Get involved. organize with us, join the working group that's putting together this bill and working with legislators and working on putting together all the communications that go with this campaign, social media graphics and TikToks and everything. Join up and go out and lobby for this bill and for everything else that we do as well. There's so much work to be done here, and we need you to organize with us. So dive in, and I know a lot of people watching this are already very much involved. Well done, and let's keep pushing. Because I don't know about you, but a lot of this information, I've been fighting these fights for 9 years, but it still does make me angry. There's an anger there, and anger can be a healthy response sometimes. It's a very natural response to uh, people getting hurt. And corruption hurts people. A government that's more responsive to the people who can pony up large campaign contributions hurts people. It wages policy violence, and that's what we're living through. And when someone you love is getting hurt, the natural response is anger. But anger is not enough. Anger is not enough. As Dr. King said, history has taught it is not enough for people to be angry. The supreme task is to organize and unite people so that their anger becomes a transforming force. It is not enough to be angry. And by the way, if anybody's looking for a book to read, go read It's Not Enough to Be Angry by Willie Baptist, a great organizer here in Philadelphia. So get involved, get involved, get involved. There's a place for everyone in the democracy movement. There are so many ways to plug into this work. Whatever your skill set, whatever your background, whatever your experience, uh, doesn't matter. Come join. You have something to offer. And we have our leadership retreat coming up this weekend, and there's going to be some people there who have been doing this work for a few years. And I've been marveling this week just reflecting on how much we've all grown and how many skills people have developed through this work. How many things that we had no idea how to do, but we learned through doing, through just diving in, taking that leap, taking that risk, taking that chance, and just plugging in and plugging away. March on Harrisburg is a place where your talents can shine, jump on into the work, and you can develop new skills as well. I did not know what a bill looked like before doing this, joining March on Harrisburg for jumping into this work. Now, hey, we're writing bills. We can do join up and learn, and bring your skills and bring everything that you have with you. Let's keep going here, and we'll do some questions at the end.
I think this one's me, Michael. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, this is actually, speaking of our leadership retreat coming up this weekend, this is a little exercise we did at my first leadership retreat with March on Harrisburg, which was back in 2022. And so I thought it would be good to do for the end of this course. Congrats, everyone. You've graduated from the 4-week democracy series, money and politics course. There's a great quote from Dr. King where he says, and I'm sorry, I'm going to probably butcher this slightly, but he says that education without social action is a one-sided value because it has no true potential. And social action without education is basically just a weak expression of just energy. And so I thought now would be a good time for all of us to reflect on something that we've learned, something that we've felt, and then also something that we want to take action on, because all of those things work together in order to grow our leadership, and also in order to grow our movement. So I thought we could take maybe like a few minutes and then share it together. And if folks are comfortable, you could put it in the chat, or we can come off mute. But yeah. I see, Erin, you put in the chat, you learned about the connection between Oklahoma and Pennsylvania, and that is great. And I always love when we build connections across different states, especially as the Poor People's Campaign. Does anybody else want to share? Put something in the chat. Josh, you put in the chat that you learned that Shell Oil has a saved parking spot at the Capitol. It is true. And yeah, it is one of those things when you see it, you are like, oh my gosh, like it just makes it all the more real. Yeah, I remember how I felt the first time that I learned that too. Carol, you put in the chat the extent of corruption in the Pennsylvania legislature. Definitely, it is deep and vast and widespread. And I always find myself learning something new about the degree of corruption in our state every day. Jeremy, you learned that there's an alternative. There's an option to what we are in now, that there's something better than the current system that we're in. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? Anybody want to come off mute and just share a few thoughts?
Andre or Michael, if you could follow up with Jeremy, he contacted me through Surge, and he's in Pennsylvania. He was involved with the protests on Saturday, and he's trying to get as involved as possible. He told me he was fairly new to politics, so if one of you guys could email him and just keep him in the loop for the future meetings, I'd appreciate it.
100%. Yes, definitely. And I'm going to put my email in the chat too, as well. And yeah, we'll definitely be reaching out to everyone after this class. And thanks for being here, Aaron and Jeremy and Serge. Betty, I see you put in the chat that you feel anger mixed with passion to help change the systemic injustices. And yeah, that's kind of that emotional part of organizing, that kind of balance between being really angry, but then really, really wanting to